What are the two things we can't talk about in public?
Well, but what do you think about,
What brings you in, brother?
My family won't hear me out. All I want to do is raise some very real concerns that I have about literally, I could go on and on and on.
Sorry!
What's the matter, mister?
Thank you.
How did we create a culture that tells us we shouldn't speak about religion and politics, especially in the United States, which enshrined the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech in our Constitution?
Here are the top 3 reasons Christians keep their opinions to themselves. First, some Christians hold irrational beliefs.
It's true. We've all witnessed people saying and doing silly things in the name of religion.
Demons out!
Religion is not immune from the human capacity for nonsense or corruption. But seriously, do you think politics is immune from these same problems? What about our education system? How about the way we politicize and fund scientific and medical research? The fact that any worthy human endeavor can be corrupted by human imperfection should make it more pressing that people of goodwill engage in them.
Second, it's bad etiquette to force your beliefs on others.
For those of us who have learned proper social etiquette, silence seems a good rule of thumb. After all, most people can't discuss politics and religion very civilly or with an open mind. So if we keep our political and religious views to ourselves, almost every gathering goes better. But this quickly comes back to bite us. Isn't the reason most people can't discuss these issues civilly or with an open mind is because we don't discuss them enough? Social media algorithms and hyper-partisan political commentary have only made this problem worse. Let's be honest. The historic project of maintaining a morally neutral public square is a myth. What are laws but moral distinctions? So if religious values are excluded from public life, then only non-religious ideologies will shape the conscience of our nation and determine our laws. While the meek, thoughtful, and prayerful may wrestle with serious ideas or the consequences of what they say, bullies, the uneducated, and the ideologically possessed do not suffer the same timidity. As a result, we're losing our religious liberty because we're not exercising it properly. By not speaking enough about socially critical issues from a faith perspective, other voices are swaying the ethics of this nation.
Third, religion makes no contribution to public policy.
Before you say religion doesn't have public value, ask yourself, would it have been better if Mahatma Gandhi had kept his religious convictions to himself? Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. should have ceded his leadership to someone who wasn't ordained for ministry? Should Cesar Chavez have ignored the unfair treatment of the agricultural workers? What if Dorothy Day had not responded to the desperation of the homeless? Should Bishop Tutu have remained silent on apartheid? What if Pope John Paul II had not publicly proclaimed to his fellow countrymen, "Never lose your spiritual freedom, with which Christ makes a human being free"? Yet he did, and declared to the communist bloc of Eastern Europe that Poles should never forget their religious heritage. As history quickly shifts under our feet, let's face it, religious liberty is just too important an idea for us to get it wrong. Because religious liberty is so important, Christians have to remove this code of silence. Before we get to the 3 reasons Christians need to start talking about religion and politics, let's see how long we've struggled to find the balance between the church and the state. Religious liberty can never be taken for granted. For the first 300 years of Christianity, the only separation that concerned Christians was the separation of their heads from their bodies. In the 4th century, Christianity was legalized and then made the official religion of the Roman Empire. Ironically, it was certain bishops that pushed back against the empire for trying to control the church. Inspired by St. Augustine's famous book, The City of God, Pope Gelasius I officially distinguished the roles of church and state. We know we were taught in school that no one had thought of that until Thomas Jefferson, but it was a more saintly Thomas Aquinas, who gave us the clearest teaching on the distinction between church and state. Yet only 50 years after Aquinas died, his view was rejected by those who wanted the church to be under the absolute power of kings. Some bad apples, it seems, always make history endlessly complex. As a consequence, certain Enlightenment philosophers developed the idea that religious faith should be entirely privatized. Later still, atheistic philosophers would ensure that, while faith remained private, the mockery of it would become very public. However, the Founding Fathers of the United States rejected both extremes of state religion and privatization. The First Amendment does not say the separation of church and state, but that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This commitment to religious tolerance guaranteed the right of every American to practice their faith in public. In fact, this view is why one of the U.S. Founding Fathers stated that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. You see, religious liberty isn't a new idea. It's just extremely hard to hold on to.
3 reasons compel us to break this code of silence. The first is that we could lose our First Amendment rights if we don't.
Some might naively think this could never happen in America. The truth is, as history shows us, it isn't difficult to imagine. While most of us have been working, taking care of our families, and trying to make it through life, some unthinkable things have been happening recently. Ask yourself, why did the US government sue the Little Sisters of the Poor while violating their moral convictions? Why are Christians, everybody from doctors to bakers, having their actions or speech coerced at the threat of losing their careers? Why are sitting senators insulting the Knights of Columbus, one of the greatest Christian charities in the world?
What's happening in this committee is absolutely nuts, that we're asking people questions about why they're members in the largest Catholic fraternal organization in America.
Why are the members of the House of Representatives insisting that we remove statues of saints and calling for a radicalization of the public square?
Let this moment radicalize you.
When public schools push secular ideologies, why can't people of faith use a voucher to go to religious schools that actually do more with less funding? Did you know that hundreds of millions of dollars is spent to bend cultural norms toward political correctness, while traditional views are censored? Why did a Supreme Court nominee get vilified by politicians and the media for her religious convictions?
The dogma lives loudly within you. That's of concern.
You don't really need the First Amendment if what you're saying is something that everybody wants to hear. You need it when people are trying to silence you.
So perhaps without intending this outcome at the beginning, the Christian Code of Silence has helped secularism step in and impose its values on our society. As we know from history, what takes centuries to build can be lost overnight.
The second reason we must speak about religion and politics is that Christians need to learn how to talk with each other about these issues.
We are called to be a united people and to be a prophetic and inspiring influence on those around us. But we need to first understand our own teachings better before we can grasp how to influence the public square as Christian disciples. Not so we can think more like Democrats or Republicans, but so we can think more like Christians. It's unfortunate that our own internal misunderstandings and political infighting has allowed others to use the separation of church and state, the privatization of religion, as a strategy to dominate public life and marginalize the public witness of faith.
The last reason we need to break the code of silence is that American political discourse desperately needs the civility and charity we should be bringing to the conversation.
There was a time not long ago when people could be friends with those who didn't share the same political or religious views. Those days have quickly vanished, it seems. The Christian belief in religious liberty is the foundation of civility. It's every human being's first and most basic right. It tells every man and woman of every race, culture, and creed, born and unborn, young and old, rich or poor, healthy or dying, that they belong to the God of love and not to the state. We have all seen religion and politics discussed in an incorrect way. But for the sake of the common good, Christians need to find a way to do it correctly. Because as Jesus said to his disciples, "You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." Remember, you are free to believe. You are free to speak. You are free to act with the convictions of your faith. You are free because Christ has set you free.